Ethan adjusted the worn strap of the diaper bag slung over his shoulder as he stared at the glowing price on the register screen. His pulse quickened, his throat tightened, and the noises of the store seemed to blur into a distant echo. He had done the math in his head over and over before walking in. He knew exactly how much change was in his pocket, had counted it in the darkness of his tiny apartment while his infant daughter whimpered in the crib. He had hoped, prayed that the small pack of diapers would fall within reach. But here it was, the number glaring back at him, larger than the sum of everything he owned at that moment. For a second, his vision blurred with the sting of tears he refused to shed in public. Behind him, the line shifted impatiently. A woman sighed loudly, glancing at her phone, while a teenager in a hoodie tapped his foot. The cashier, a young man barely old enough to shave, gave Ethan the polite but weary look of someone used to watching people come up short. Ethan forced himself to speak, his voice low, almost inaudible. I don't have enough." His fingers hovered over the diapers, torn between shame and necessity. Images flashed in his mind, his daughter's soft cheeks, the way she curled her tiny fists when she cried, the lingering scent of his late wife's shampoo on the baby blanket she had left behind. Life had not given Ethan time to grieve. It had forced him into survival mode. 2 jobs, long nights, endless exhaustion, and still, the cruel reality of standing in line, unable to afford diapers, stripped him of the last shreds of dignity he clung to. He swallowed hard, whispering, "I'm sorry," as he reached for the package, ready to return it to the shelf. That was when a voice broke through the moment, steady, calm, and startling in its timing. "I'll take them all." The words landed with such weight that for a moment Ethan thought he had misheard. He froze, turning his head slowly. Standing just behind him was a man who looked like he belonged to another world entirely. Tall, broad-shouldered, wrapped in a tailored suit that probably cost more than Ethan's monthly rent, he had an air of authority that silenced the impatience of the line. His face was unreadable, carved in stone, with eyes that carried a strange heaviness, eyes that had seen power, wealth, perhaps even loss. The cashier blinked, confused. Sir, all of them?" "Yes," the man said simply, his gaze never leaving Ethan. "Every pack of diapers in this store." "Put them on my bill." The teenager in the hoodie let out a quiet laugh of disbelief. The woman with the phone frowned, curious now. Ethan's own chest constricted. Heat rose to his face. No, that's not necessary. Please, I can't." The man raised a hand, cutting him off. "It's already done." His tone was not arrogant. It was not pitying. It was something else, an odd mixture of command and compassion, spoken like a man who wasn't used to being questioned, but, for once, wasn't speaking to be obeyed. Ethan shook his head, words stumbling out in a rush. "I don't want charity. I'm fine. I'll figure something out." For the first time, the man's expression softened just slightly. "It's not charity. It's a choice. My choice." The cashier, unsure, looked between the 2 men. Ethan felt the weight of 100 emotions pressing down on him. Embarrassment, relief, suspicion, pride, gratitude. His body tensed as if he was about to collapse under it all. And yet, beneath the storm inside him, there was something else he couldn't ignore, a faint flicker of hope, like the first fragile spark in the dark. The man stepped forward, handing his black credit card to the cashier with a practiced ease. His voice was low, final, a bag them all. Ethan's legs felt unsteady as he stepped out of the store, a bag full of diapers swinging at his side. The night air was cool, carrying with it the faint smell of rain on concrete, but his chest was hot, his thoughts tangled and restless. He couldn't process what had just happened. In his arms, he carried more diapers than his daughter would need for months, and yet, instead of relief, he felt swallowed by confusion. Why would a stranger, especially a man who clearly belonged to a different world, do something like this for him? The stranger walked out a moment later, his polished shoes clicking against the pavement, his suit catching the yellow glow of the streetlights. Ethan hesitated, torn between gratitude and defensiveness. He wasn't used to accepting help. Ever since his wife had passed, he had promised himself he would stand on his own, that his daughter would never see him beg or break. Pride had kept him moving when exhaustion had nearly crushed him. But pride also felt like chains now, keeping him from simply saying a thank you. You don't owe me an explanation, the man said, as if reading Ethan's thoughts. His voice carried that same calm authority, but softer now. But I think you could use a cup of coffee. Ethan blinked. What? The man nodded toward the small diner across the street, its neon sign flickering weakly against the dark. A coffee. Sit down. No strings attached. Everything in Ethan screamed to decline. He didn't want to be anyone's charity case. Yet something in the man's eyes, lonely, almost hollow, despite his polished exterior, stirred a quiet curiosity. Maybe it was exhaustion, maybe it was instinct, but Ethan found himself nodding. All right, they crossed the street in silence. Inside, the diner was nearly empty, the kind of place where the smell of bacon grease clung to the booths and the waitress knew every regular by name. They slid into a booth near the window. The waitress, a cheerful woman with tired eyes, poured them both steaming cups of coffee without asking. For a moment, neither spoke. Ethan wrapped his hands around the mug, letting the warmth seep into his skin. Finally, he looked up. I don't even know your name. Alexander Steele, the man replied simply, stirring his coffee with deliberate precision. And you, Ethan, he said, Ethan Hayes. Alexander gave a single nod, as though committing the name to memory. Silence lingered between them again, but it wasn't uncomfortable. Ethan studied him, the sharp jawline, the watch on his wrist that probably cost more than Ethan's yearly salary, the posture of a man used to control. Yet beneath all of it, there was something else. A weight. A weariness Ethan recognized because he carried it too. Or why? Ethan asked finally, his voice cracking just slightly. Why would you do that for me? You don't even know me. You don't even know me. Alexander set his spoon down carefully, his eyes fixed on the dark surface of his coffee. For a long moment, he didn't answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was lower, softer. Because I know what it's like to need something no amount of money can buy. Ethan frowned, not fully understanding. What do you mean? Alexander's gaze shifted toward the window, where rain had begun to tap gently against the glass. His reflection looked back at him, sharp, successful, untouchable, and yet he felt the familiar hollowness behind it. I've built companies. I've made billions. People look at me and see power, success, control. But what they don't see is the silence, the empty house, the phone that doesn't ring. The people who left because I thought money was enough to keep them close. The words hit Ethan harder than he expected. For the first time since stepping into that store, he didn't feel small. He didn't feel like the poorest man in the room. He realized that loneliness had no price tag. It could crush the man in the tattered hoodie and the man in the tailored suit just the same. Ethan leaned back, exhaling slowly. I guess we both lost something. Alexander's lips pressed into a thin line, a flicker of pain flashing across his otherwise controlled face. Yes. Maybe more than one thing, the waitress returned, dropping off a slice of pie neither of them had ordered. On the house, she said with a kind smile. You both look like you could use it. For the first time, Alexander chuckled, a quiet, almost foreign sound. Ethan found himself smiling too, the heaviness in his chest easing just slightly. Two men, worlds apart, sitting in a small diner with nothing but coffee and pie between them, bound by something neither had expected, the fragile thread of shared humanity.